podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello everyone, it's Gav, and before we begin, I want to let you know that this episode of How Are the Podcast is sponsored by Live Score Bet, a proud principal partner of Sunderland FC. And if you're looking to get started, Live Score Bet have got a cracking welcome offer for new customers. All you have to do is bet £10 on sports and you get £30 in free bets. It's as simple as that. So, if you're ready to join the action, make sure you're doing it with Live Score Bet, the home of total betting. This offer is available to new members only, and you need to put £10 or more on a bet on sports within 14 days of opening your account. Free bets are valid for 7 days, £20 to use on Sportsbook, £10 on Bet Builder. T's and C's and deposit exclusions apply. Bet responsibly, over 18s only. Hello everyone and welcome to How Are the Podcast, sponsored by Live Score Bet. It's Gav and you join us for today's matchday preview as we take on Manchester City at the Stadium of Light on New Year's Day, and we're following up from the draw against Leeds with a game against a very, very difficult opponent. And joining me today to chat all about it are two lovely young men. And first off, we've got Andrew Smithson with us. Hello, mate.
Hello, Gav. Yes, nice to see you, and thanks for referring to me as a lovely young gentleman. Back at you there, Gav. You're not so bad yourself.
Well, we're younger than some people. I mean, you know, when you look at the Sunderland team and you kind of idolise these players and you realise they're younger and you think, oh, fucking hell, what the hell's going on in my life? Also with us is an actual young man. It's Johnny Hawley. Hello, mate.
Aye, all right, lads. You say actual young man, but I'm in the same boat as you now, where I was I'm looking at them thinking, oh God, even these are younger than us. I wouldn't even sign myself on Football Manager these days, so I'm over the hill.
Yeah, I actually looked at that the other day. I was like thinking, oh, like he's an old player, isn't he? Like James Milner. And then I looked, and I'm not that much younger than James Milner. And I'm like, he's been playing forever. Oh, fuck's sake, man.
Are you in as good nick as James Milner is as well?
No. I don't think many people are, to be honest. Like, you've got to be canny good to be. We were in the pub before the Leeds game and they showed the highlights from the game when he scored against us in 2002. And on the pitch that day, I can't remember exactly who was playing for Leeds, but I'm sure one of them was Boya. I might be wrong. But there's like James Milner still playing to this day. And there were players on the pitch who started their careers like light years before he did. It just scares the life out of us.
Phil Babu was on the pitch for us, played in the very first ever Premier League game in 1992.
Well, there you go.
On the pitch in that game, and James Milner is still playing. So,
I've actually just found the game that it was the player I was thinking about was Robbie Fowler, because Fowler scored the other goal.
Aye.
And he's still playing. It's mad, isn't it?
It's crazy.
I mean, even looking at the rest of that, we're on a right tangent here. We might be talking Man City, but Gary Kelly, Ian Hart, Teddy Lukic, Paul Oxon. I haven't even heard of half of these. Nigel Martin was on the bench for Leeds that day.
Bloody hell.
And Milner's still going. It's fair play to him. Like, I mean, the Sunderland team, you said Phil Babb there. There was also Kevin Phillips, Marcus Stewart on the bench. I mean, Jesus, it's a credit to him that he's still going. But anyways, we're here to talk about Manchester City and Sunderland. It's probably good reason we're kind of avoiding talking about the team we're playing. Look, I'm not. I don't know about you lads. I'm not particularly daunted by this one. I think it's kind of one of them where you look at it and you go, out of 20 games against Manchester City, we're probably only going to win one, maybe two of them because they are that good. But there's no reason why this couldn't be that one or two, Andrew. Surely, we've caused upsets against Man City in the past. Our history in this particular fixture at the Stadium of Light, we were a thorn in their side for a long time. We used to win 1-0 every time we played them at the Stadium of Light. I mean, I'm not saying that's going to happen again necessarily, but it is proof that on our day we can turn up and we can beat anybody, and I think this team in particular can do that. So whilst everyone, including all the bookmakers, will be looking at Manchester City and thinking, nailed on win, this is the team that are going to break Sunderland's unbeaten home record, we've got to fancy our chances of getting something, even if it is just a point.
Yeah, why not? I mean, I'm always glass half full. And you talk about that run of 1-0 wins over them. One of them was, of course, New Year's Day, wasn't it?
Yeah.
the Martin O'Neill era. So this Sunderland team have consistently done us proud. They've consistently produced results that were even better than we hoped for. So I don't think we're going into it like lambs to the slaughter. But lads, this is a hot take. Man City are quite decent. I've done a bit of
Yeah,
research.
I think you're right. Yeah.
I've done a bit of research, and apparently they're not a bad side. I've just looked at the league table there. I hadn't realised they're already on 40 points. They are, even by their standards, are in good form at the moment. So yeah, it's a tough game, and I'm not going to be wandering up thinking it's an easy 3 points for us. But it's nice to think that we can at least give them a few problems.
Yeah. That's it, isn't it? We've got to go into this, Johnny, as the underdog, I think. But maybe with that underdog mentality, it's not such a bad thing. I know everybody practically plays against Manchester City as the underdog, but for us, we seem to be at our best when we have that spirit. Like we've had it often where we really seem to relish the battle against teams who should be beating us, and I actually think the players will be really up for this one.
Relishing the battle's a good phrase to use, I think, because the character that's in this squad, and particularly with Granit Xhaka, I mean, we've all waxed lyrical about them all season for good reason. You can tell, like you say, that they really do seem to enjoy it, going out, getting stuck in, and not just doing the dirty work and the defensive side of the game, but I think they really enjoy the idea of, what if we can hurt them, and being able to capitalize on those few chances that you get. It does seem that there's a real good mentality around that whole side of the game. So yeah, I think, being the underdogs can definitely suit us. There's also, I think, a little bit of, you compare us a little bit to a team like maybe Nottingham Forest last season, where I think, a common criticism of that side as well was, okay, they do very, very well when they're counter-attacking and they're under the cosh, but what are they like when they need to go and play a team at home where they're the favourites and they need to dominate the game and stuff? And we saw against Leeds, obviously, the other day, albeit with a much depleted squad, that I think that's something that you could certainly level at Sunderland. But as a newly promoted team, no matter how well you do, that's always going to be the case. So yeah, it's a good chance. I think it's, again, we've said a few times this season, haven't we? You wouldn't maybe describe them as free hits, these kind of games, because you don't want to get turned over 5 or 6-0 or anything like that and really put a dent in the confidence. But it's a good opportunity for us to go out and, with a little bit less pressure, hopefully go and try and play really well and get a result. Because then if you do, even if you nick a point, but I think it really helps keep that belief up, keep the momentum going. Because as long as you're picking up points, even if it's only 1 point at a time, you're always moving forwards. And the more that the more of the season you spend moving forwards, the happier you're going to be at the end of it. So yeah, looking forward to this one, actually.
Yeah, I am as well. I think, look, it would have been nice coming into this on the back of a win, but I think what we did against Leeds was come away with an understanding that it's very difficult to win games when you're missing so many players. And the players are well aware of that. They're not going into these games under any illusions. They can see when they look around on the pitch, they don't have Ronaldo, they don't have Noah Siddiqui, they don't have Bertrand Traore, there's no Shams and Talbi, etc., etc. So, and obviously Ballard was missing last time out as well, which was a late blow, because we would have probably fared a lot better had we had him available, and we didn't. So the lads aren't daft, they know what the crack is, and I think I actually think that we'll almost relish this opportunity to test ourselves against them again, because at their place a few weeks ago when we played, it was a totally different game, but you expect it to be because it's their home ground. They're going to look to control the ball, and that's the best anybody's played against us this season. They were absolutely fantastic, Man City, without really getting out of second or third gear, but they were good. I think it's a different game at the Stadium Light. I think they'll be well aware of that. You've got to look at our unbeaten home record, and the fact that when we don't play very well, we're still managing to pick up points at home. And Pep will be looking at this and thinking, this isn't going to be as easy, Andrew, as it probably was at the Etihad. Regardless of the fact we're missing so many players, I think they're going to probably be on their guard a little bit more than they probably were at their place. I do think that, despite having an absolute raft of quality footballers in their ranks who can unlock any defence. I mean, if you look at the results they've had recently, they beat Real Madrid just after playing us. So away from home as well, by the way. So, like, I'm not saying they're going to turn up the Stadium of Light and they're going to be like, worrying about us necessarily, but I do think they'll be a little bit more guarded than they were at the Etihad.
Of course, any team that comes to the Stadium of Light at the moment and is ever so slightly off the boil or takes Sunderland for granted, then they're their own worst enemies, because we are a really capable side. And you say it won't be as easy as it was at their place a few weeks ago. I don't know that it was that easy for Man City. Again, it might be me and me glass that's half full, but certainly for the first half of the game, I don't think it was a 3-0 beaten. I think Sunderland were decent, and it was only when we went behind.
Yeah, I think it was just the lack of intensity that we had because we knew we were playing Newcastle. Siddiqui and Xhaka couldn't really put a foot in. I don't think it's going to be the same this time around necessarily, because we came away from that game doing pods and we were saying, yeah, I think you could see the lads had one eye on Newcastle. There was almost if you remember when Xhaka and Siddiqui got subbed off, the away end then just started singing the Newcastle songs as a sign to the players to say, right, we've already got over this defeat. I think there was, in hindsight, you kind of look back at that and you go, we probably didn't play with 100%, which is, it's not a criticism of the team.
That's fair.
I just don't think we did. And I think this will be very different because we're not looking ahead to Newcastle and thinking, shit, who might get banned. This is a different game altogether.
Well, that's fair, but Gavin just emphasises the point even more, that even in a situation where Sunderland were not at 100% and Ronaldo dropped out late on, which I think caused a bit of shifting around with regards to starting the level, even then, I don't think we were dreadful. So yeah, you've got to assume that at the stadium, and now some of those circumstances are different, you've got to assume we'll be performing at a different level. And listen, Guardiola, I don't like the way he goes on. I think he acts himself too much. But purely as a manager and in terms of preparation, he will have been studying Sunderland, and he'll not be letting any of his players think that this is a game where they can afford to let their standards drop. Man City will have to be at their best to be guaranteed the win, I think. I mean, we are at the moment, we're at half strength. Against Leeds, we had half of our preferred starting 11 missing, and we still didn't lose. So you'd be kidding yourself from a Man City point of view if you're looking at this and thinking it's a gimme.
I agree. And from our perspective, Johnny, we've, as I said before, unbeaten at home in the last, what's it been, 4 or 5 months in the Premier League. And that's something I'm really proud of, actually, to be sat here with that record, to be able to say Sunderland have just been the Stadium has been such a fortress for us. I think is outstanding. And that's the biggest strength I believe we've got coming into this, is that, it's a tough place to come and play. And I think against Leeds, there was a lull in the atmosphere. I don't know if you got the same impression as me, but, I think people had maybe enjoyed Christmas a bit too much, and maybe it wasn't as buoyant. The football didn't really help people to get into the game as much. And even going down at half time for a beer and stuff, the queues were smaller than they normally are. I think maybe the atmosphere wasn't as buoyant as it normally is. But this one's going to be on New Year's Day. It's a late kickoff. I think if you think back to the Sheffield United game last year, which happened on the same time, same day, atmosphere was brilliant. And I think people did enjoy the festivities on that day. But all that taken into account, the stadium with a good atmosphere it's going to be a difficult place for anyone to play at. And more so than tactics and things, I think that's really helped us this season. The crowd getting with with the players and getting behind them in big moments and cheering big tackles and stuff like that. Almost as good as that motivational boost you get from winning games. It's just, having a really, really excitable crowd behind you who can push over the line in key moments.
Absolutely. And you're right, you can ride the wave of momentum from positive results and stuff, and that's great, but that's only as good as the run of form you're on. So you need something to be able to fall back on, I think, as well, which, look, we haven't lost a home game yet this season, just to restate that. So, we don't know exactly what the atmosphere is going to look like if we lose a game and then the following game or whatever. But, even against Leeds, and I agree, I thought the atmosphere was not poor, but definitely below the usual standards. I mean, everything sounded brilliant before the game, and, the walk out and wise men saying everything was very good, but, there wasn't much to cheer about during the game. And as somebody who was in the overindulged in the festivities crowd, I can safely say I wasn't feeling as up for, sitting and clapping and singing and chanting for 90 minutes as I might normally be. But even in that game, I can't remember exactly who it was, but there was one moment midway through the first half where maybe Enzo Lefebvre goes in for a tackle and, half leaves a bit in on someone and everyone's up and clapping and, getting behind them. That's all it takes, which I think is a real positive, because against Man City, if we're sat there waiting for the first, goal mouth opportunity or the first bit of skill to get excited, potentially could be waiting a little while, but, getting up for the tackles, winning the aerial battles and stuff, it's a lovely two-way relationship, I think, that the fans have got with the players now, where the players know how much the fans love it, which gives them a bit extra oomph to get in and start getting at people and roughing them up. And then the fans, I think, can see how much the players have bought into that. So then it all, it's like a nice positive feedback loop where it sort of snowballs a bit, which, yeah, it's hopefully something that we can use to try and get a little bit of edge over City, because God knows we're going to need every bit we can get. But I think that's definitely something that we've got to look to utilise. And I think, we've seen that the players have made conscious efforts as well, obviously during the derby, but there's been plenty times this season we'll win a corner, win a throw-in in a dangerous position, and then the players are turning around, giving the arms up to the crowd, geeing people up. Xhaka gets involved with it. Mukiele is, he loves a bit of it as well. So that's something that we definitely need. We need to try and keep that going as long as we can, basically, because the longer that carries on, the more of a threat will continue to be at home. And I just hope that that's still the case after this game, even if it goes wrong, which, let's be honest, it could. And most likely it will, because Man City are a brilliant, brilliant team, and they've got the best number 9 on the planet. So, if we're pinning all of our hopes on a clean sheet, we might leave a bit disappointed. But as long as I think that we come away thinking that the lads have grafted and put 100% in, which I'm sure they will, then I've got no worries about that.
Mm. Okay, well, we'll go for a quick break, and then I think we'll talk a little bit more about Man City's team and, of course, our own team and what we think Régis Le Bris is going to do. So we'll see you after the break.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Here's my 30-second story with Guinness. As soon as my sister and I get home for the holidays, we don't even unpack. We head straight to our pub. The bartender already knows our order, Guinness and fries. We laugh all night, catch up with old friends, and walk home with faces sore from smiling. It's one of my favorite nights of the year. That was my 30-second story with Guinness.
Guinness Draft Stout. Please enjoy responsibly. Imported by Diageo Beer Company, USA, New York, New York.
Welcome back to Howie the podcast, sponsored by LiveScoreBet. And just before the break, Jonny briefly touched on some of the quality which Manchester City have in their ranks. He stated that they've got the best number 9 walking the earth at the minute, which I think is fair to say. Erling Haaland currently on 19 goals, I think, which is just obscene in it. I mean, it's ridiculous. The guy just is an absolute machine at scoring goals, but it isn't all just about Erling Haaland, because you look around the rest of that team, Phil Foden's back in really good form at the minute. Ryan Cherky, who was the pick of the bunch for me last time we played them. I think he absolutely had our lives. He put a ball in the box, which was a Rabona for one of the goals. Like, just an unbelievable footballer. You look right across the midfield. Reinders, who they signed in the summer, he scored against Forest in the last time out. Gonzalez, who holds that centre of the pitch. Bernardo Silva's been around a long time, quality operator. And then Donnarumma in goal, who, I mean, is an outstanding shot stopper and saver of goals. It's probably in the defence where I would say, if you were going to point out any sort of weakness, if it is a weakness, where you would look at the fullbacks maybe and say they could be got at if you're feeling brave. But then you look to the bench and they're a bit like us, actually. They're missing quite a few players, although I would much rather have their options than ours. Ours being a bunch of Bairns and Leo Yalda. They've got, Savinho, Rodri on the bench, which isn't too bad, I suppose. Rico Lewis is there too, but they are struggling for numbers a little bit, and they've had to name a bunch of kids on the bench. But the wider point, Andrew, is that this is a quality team, one of the best in the world at the minute. I think they've probably, in my mind, overtaken Arsenal as the favourites for the league title. I just think eventually they will overcome Arsenal and will, once they're in that top spot, I don't see anybody taking it back off them. But that's kind of the understanding you have to have coming into this game, isn't it? Is it, whilst we love our team, we think we're a fantastic team, we've done brilliantly this season. Man City, their expectations now, and they've done this so often under Pep Guardiola, is to just keep winning games. Once they get on a run, they're very difficult to stop. And we shouldn't fear that necessarily, but I think as fans, collectively, you have to have a realisation of what you're coming up against. And as we've just went through there, some of these players are some of the best in their positions in world football. So we've got to be on our A game to hope to even get a point from this, I think.
Yeah, I mean, listen, both things can be true. Sunderland are a great team. We've got some great players and we can be rightly proud of them. But Man City are just a level on from that. And it's understandable why that is the case. They've got some head start over us over the last few years. So there's no shame if we lose to them. But yeah, Man City just have this relentless feeling about them, don't they? When they finally hit top gear, they just seem unstoppable. And that's where we find ourselves at the moment. It's really tricky because you've said there that if they have a weakness, and it's not necessarily a weakness, it's just they're not as excellent at fullback as they are elsewhere on the pitch. It's tricky because do you stick or twist? Do you try and target those areas and use attack as your best form as defence and see if we can get in behind them down the wings? Or is that a suicide mission? And are you better off just padding out the defence, padding out the midfield and seeing set pieces as your main threat? It's a tricky one, and I don't know what quite the right answer is on that. I mean, with set pieces have been a threat for Sunderland all season. And strictly speaking, the goal against Leeds came from a long throw-in. I know it's been half cleared by Leeds, but it was a Mukele throw into the box that's caused the ball to then land at Xhaka's feet and for him to put it into a Dingra. So we know we can threaten them through that. It's just, do you take that risk of trying to do something against them in open play and potentially leave yourselves open to a team who are just absolutely lethal? They're ruthless when they're attacking.
Yeah, what would you do, Johnny, when it comes to sort of approach them? Because we've played against them recently, so we know what worked, what didn't work in that game. We understand that we can't try and outplay them. I think that would be foolish. But we also can't just sit back for 90 minutes with 11 men behind the ball, because, eventually that they're going to wear you down. They're so used to that. It's like that's the big question, isn't it, for the manager? Is like, how do you at least start this game for the first 60, 70 minutes. What is our approach to stop them from scoring?
Bloody good question, that. Before I answer, I just want to go back to what you said before. A Bunch of Bairns and Leo Hjelde would be a great name for a DVD of that promotion season last year. That's really stuck in my head. But yeah, on to the question of how do you play well against Manchester City? Look, I think you're absolutely right. We can't just sit behind the ball. We can't just go 11 men, sit back and totally restrict space and do nothing going forward, because on the one hand, that's just too negative as a home team. You can't be doing that, I don't think, unless you're, literally right at the bottom of the table fighting for your life. There's not really much excuse for that. But I think we do, obviously, we need to pay them a lot of respect. That if we try and go at them too much and start leaving gaps in behind, put it this way, if our left back's pressing the keeper in the 46th minute, it's not going to go well, I don't think. So I don't mind if we do set up similar to the way that we did at the Etihad, because, I think I said this around the game as well. That first goal, a centre-back's having a dig from 30, 35 yards or whatever it was. Against teams like Manchester City, you have to let them have the ball somewhere. They're going to have possession. They're probably going to have the majority of possession over the course of the game. So they've got to have the ball in one part of the pitch or the other. And it's far better if it's outside your box than inside it. I know revolutionary tactical stuff from me here. But so that whole game plan, in general, I haven't got a problem with that. But we'll have to just tweak that balance a little bit. We have to be a little bit more daring when we do get the chance to break with the ball at our feet. When Roofs, claims a cross or claims a corner or a throw-in or whatever, let's have somebody who's looking like Adingra tends to do. Let's have somebody looking to break on the halfway line and maybe exploit a bit of space and behind. When we are trying to, put balls up to presumably Brian Brobby, who I would imagine is going to get the nod up front, when we're putting balls up to him, let's make sure that we try and at least have somebody or a couple of players that are near enough to him that he can, if he does win the battle, the duel, then he can at least, have a couple of options. So I don't want to see us overcommitting. I don't need to see us trying to get, 4 versus 3 and 5 versus 4 breaks all the time. I'm happy with us being pragmatic and defensive and sensible about it, but there just has to be that little bit more almost give and take between the attack and the defence, because, as I say, at the Etihad it made perfect sense. It's just that for me, that would be the wrong balance. I think I'd stick with 4 at the back as well, just because I think to keep some solidity in the midfield, it depends on the Ballard situation, obviously. It depends if Ballard ends up being fit or not. As we sit recording, we're not 100% sure. If Ballard's fit, 5 at the back maybe becomes a bit more of an option again, but if he's not, I just think we still need a Geertruida in that midfield with Xhaka to help him, because there's going to be a lot of running to do. You went through the list of the players before, didn't you, Gavin? There's, Bernardo Silva and what's he called, Nico, somebody, the holding midfielder.
Gonzalez.
Gonzalez, that's the one. Again, you can go right through the team. There's quality all through that squad. So we have to be able to, we've got to be able to give the midfield the help that they need, because I thought at times against Leeds, we struggled in that midfield. And I know that's because Leeds are such a physical team as well, but, winning second balls and being scrappy has been a big strength of ours. And we were found out a little bit in that sense. And if that continues against Manchester City, it's going to be a long old evening. So, something to just shore up that midfield for me would be ideal. But I'm okay with it being defensive, because to play otherwise would be suicide.
Yeah, I took a look at the some of the games recently where they've come close to losing. The last time they got beat was Newcastle in November. And in that game, Newcastle played with a back 4. Fulham scored 4 goals against them, played a back 4. Forest at the weekend, it was a close one. It was 2-1. Forest played with a back 4. I've just got a feeling that makes more sense than doing what we did at the Etihad and going with a 5. I'm not keen on the 5. I know that Régis Le Bris favours the 5 against stronger teams. You kind of look at the Arsenal game maybe as an example of how you could potentially approach this one. But I've just got a feeling, given that we've played with a 4 for the last, 3 games now, and defensively we've been pretty good. I just think it makes sense to do that. Obviously, it all hinges on whether Ballard's available. And as you said, Johnny, we're recording this because of the festive schedule. We are recording this a little ahead of time, so this has been recorded before the manager speaks to the press, by which point he might have actually given an indication of whether he's available or not. I did see some posts on social media claiming from fans that they'd spoken to Ballard after the Leeds game, and he'd said he feels he's got a chance of playing. I think if Ballard's available, well, if there's a chance that he can play, I would play him, because the way that he played against Haaland at their place, I know it was, in the end, it was a 3-0 defeat, but I thought Ballard was unbelievable against Haaland. He just didn't get a sniff off him. So if there's even half a chance of Ballard being fit, I'd like to see him in there. But in terms of systems, I think I would stick with the 4. I think at home it makes sense, providing we stay organised. Really, I thought there was times where against Leeds, we particularly down the sides, we didn't give the fullbacks enough cover, and it wasn't really until Leeds started to turn the screw in the second half that we then put Enzo Lefebvre on the right, and I think that was just to try and protect Hume a bit. But Enzo didn't play very well, so we didn't see a massive increase in quality. But you just have to remember that when you're not playing a back 5, your wingers have to be protecting the fullback, and that's going to be the key decision to make, Andrew. I think is if we do stick with the 4, Adingra for me played very well in the last game, but I can't help but think he's not the best defensively, and we're not going to have much of the ball in this one. So there's a chance he might not even start this, which is interesting. Enzo could probably play on the left and give that cover to Dennis Cirkin, which he probably is going to need. And then on the other side, I think one of the things which we were desperately lacking against Leeds was just not having somebody for Brobby to play off, and I would like to see Mayenda play out there. But again, are you going to get much defensive cover out of Mayenda? He's all right defensively. So these are the headaches Régis is going to have, aren't they, Andrew? These are the things he's going to be thinking of. Like, you'll want to go out there and try and win the game or get something from the game. But what can we do with what we've got available, which is very limited, admittedly, to try and take Man City on without making it too easy for them effectively?
Well, I think you're right to say there's lots of headaches. And in terms of Adingra, bizarrely, and this would be really unlucky for him, I do think he will drop out. He amazing goal he scored against Leeds, and he showed other flashes where you thought, yeah, we're now getting to see what we thought we were going to get from Adingra. But he cannot defend. Even when he's tracking back, there were times against Leeds where he was just, I'm not trying to slight the lad, but there were just times where he didn't quite know where he was, or he took the wrong defensive option. So the will was there, at least. Fair play to him for that, but he doesn't do enough defensively. So I do think he maybe comes out of the team. How I would sell that to him, though, is you've been out for so long, you've now come back and played 2 high-intensity games. He probably will be more important to us in some of the upcoming fixtures. So, don't take it to heart if you dropped. It's not necessarily that you haven't played well. It's more the fact that we'd rather protect you and avoid you burning out ahead of games where you can do more use for us. So I think Adingra goes. The problem I've got, lads, like you've said, there's lots of potential options there. I disagree with you both slightly. I think we do go back to a 5 across the back and 4 in front of them with a solitary striker. I know I said there is that possibility of us trying to cause Man City problems rather than sitting back. I just think given the numbers we're short on at the moment and the type of players who are missing, I think our best option is to go solid, with the caveat, as I always like to throw in, that whilst we might line up with a 5 at the back, some of those players are moving around, and at some points they're in defence, at some points they're in midfield. That's how I feel. One thing I will say as well, we don't know about Ballard for certain, but you know that Le Bris won't just be walking around the training ground just crossing his fingers. Ballard, say Ballard has a fitness test 2 hours before kickoff or whatever. It's not going to be a case of wait until the result of that and then we'll decide what we do. All week, that group will be training for both possibilities. And we might even see it where he selects a formation that works with Ballard there or not. And I'm going to throw a name in at yous, and lads, yous are welcome to laugh at us. I wouldn't be that shocked if Luke O'Nien played.
Well, yeah, I was just about to bring him up because it's his return, isn't it?
Yeah.
And, Luke will be back from his suspension. You looked to the bench the other day. We didn't have defensive options there. So if we went to a back five, he is really the only player you could bring in, is Luke O'Nien. It is interesting because
he'll be on the bench. He'll potentially play a part in the game, whether he starts or not. That bench the other day was like, no offense to these lads, that was horrific for a Premier League game. So it needs improvement.
Yeah. So we've got that option there to maybe, I think Luke will play some part in the game, but that's the other concern as well, Andrew, is if we go to a back five. Let's say Ballard's available. We go to a back five. I don't think you can take Geertruida out of midfield because that would probably mean you have to start Dan Neil, and I don't think that's going to happen, just given that he's never been used. And, by the way, Geertruida was brilliant. I think a couple of lads, when we did the podcast, gave him man of the match. So, I think he was that good in there. And you kind of look at the rest of the options available. If we go to a back five, we don't have the options on the bench if we need to change it. So that's the only thing. I don't know what the manager will do, but if he does go to a back five, then you would have to say Luke's got to start, because who else? He's not going to put Leo Hjelde in, is he?
No, he's not. And again, 09, we always have these discussions, don't we, about is it a 5, is it a 4, or what is it? You could even conceivably see some sort of 4-1-4-1 where 09 is doing some sort of sweeper role. It wouldn't be my choice, but you wouldn't rule it out entirely. So yeah, that's why I'm thinking 09 might be in with a shout. And if he is preparing us with a 5 and then suddenly at the last minute Ballard is available, well, you can easily slot Ballard back into a 5 without having to rip up the whole game plan. So that's where I was thinking. But yeah, you're right. In at the moment, any selection you make or any change isn't just a like for like, because Geertruida could very easily go into defence. We've seen him perform there, but then you're missing his skills in midfield. I agree. Geertruida or Hairtruida, I can't even decide myself what I'm calling him now. He was fantastic, and he displayed certain skills that I didn't realise he had. I always assumed that as a central midfielder, he would be one who just protected the back four and did a bit of shielding and was breaking up the opposition. He's not half bad with the ball at his feet himself. He spread it around canny nice. So yeah, there's lots of questions. I think no matter what Le Bris does, though, people will appreciate that he's trying to come up with the right idea. I really doubt that come full time, there'll be many of us going away saying, "Oh, Le Bris has dropped an absolute rick with that team selection."
Yeah. I think all this conversation highlights is that we are kind of down to the bare bones in terms of options, and what he'll probably do is try and pick a team where we're not leaving ourselves too short when we need to make changes. I think that was the case against Leeds. I think there was a lot of calls for Mundell to maybe start, a lot of calls for maybe Mayenda to start. I was one of them who thought he should start. Problem is if you do that, you need players off the bench who can create an impact should you need it. And that'll be in his thinking, because ultimately whoever isn't starting needs to be a player who can come on and change the game up for us. So that'll be interesting. But I think for me, and again, we said this before, we were talking about this on the podcast, I would be keen to see Mayenda start this one. I think he's probably the one player we've got who, if you start Brian Broby up front, you can expect him to run beyond and is very good at dribbling the ball and might create something out of nout. And I think if we're going to get anything from this game, we're going to score any goals in this game, you're going to need a bit of individual brilliance. And I'm just looking at who we've got available who can provide that, who's also maybe a bit of an enigma, somebody that they're maybe not expecting to do anything. So for the second preview run, and I am sitting here and saying I would start Eliza Mayenda in this game, but kind of just reflecting on what Andrew said there, Johnny, if we go to a back five and we don't think Adingra would start, given his inability really to defend, particularly in that system, you've got to assume then, well, Enzo Lefebvre is probably going to play on the left, or would it be Mundle? I mean, it's difficult, isn't it, to work out what we would actually do. I agree with what Andrew said, though. You know, we probably going to have a couple of plans going into this one to see what we're going to do.
I mean, you could make a case to play essentially a 5-3-2 and play Enzo centrally just ahead of Xhaka and Getrauda, and then play Mayenda off Brobbey. And I think that could work, and I think it would help us be a bit more defensively solid in some senses, because you can be more compact and a bit narrower, a bit more naturally, which is, generally tends to serve you quite well when you're defending. But I would worry about the lack of width, because then you're asking whoever plays in the wing back positions, presumably Mukiele or Hume, maybe Serkin, you're asking a lot from those lads. It's a different kettle of fish if you've got Ronaldo on one side, who I think he can do that job where he's basically playing fullback and winger in one. He can do that all day, because the amount of stamina he's got, the engine he's got on him is ridiculous. And going way back to earlier in the pod, I think you mentioned, Gav, that if you're looking at any weakness that you can possibly try and conjure up in this City team, probably is the fullbacks. I just worry if you go back five, you're essentially sacrificing your potential best avenue to a goal before you've even kicked a ball, which, I understand, obviously, that it could be that that's the way that Reggie weighs it up and goes, right, the five for me is the most stable formation. It's the way we're going to get ourselves into the game and stay in the game as long as possible. And then maybe look to change things up later on. And like you said, 60, 70 minutes, that's when you start chucking an Adingra on, or a Mundle on, or an Isidore on, with the aim of then stretching the game. Yeah, just for me, I would just be a little bit worried about that lack of width if we went with the five at the back, because other than doing a 5-3-2 where you've got someone off the striker, our wide options, they're so thin on the ground. Like, to keep the point of the back five, which is defensive solidity, you can't start Mundle and you can't start Adingra. So you've got Lefebvre who can play on one, maybe Rig on the other, but they're all potentially viable options. It's just that none of them feel right, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, another week where we give Régis the unenviable task of picking the team and not us, because we just sit here and muse over what he could do and then can't settle on anything in particular because we just don't have a clue. But I suppose that's one of the beauties of him as a coach, is that, you kind of don't really expect much out of him. And then when it comes to the time the team sheet appears and you go, bloody hell, I didn't see that coming. I think for the last two games, it's been Rig starting on the right, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And we haven't really talked about that, apart from...
Yeah, it'll be very interesting, when the team does come out. We'll be seeing the fruits of Reggie's labours. I mean, sorry, to quickly go on the Rig point, though, you say about Rig starting the last couple of games. Does that not tell you that he's probably going to start this one? Because if he's getting trusted, in back-to-back games like that, and even when there were other options, I wonder whether that is still just a signal that it's going to be Rig in there again with possibly Enzo on the other side.
Yeah.
I suspect that Rig will play again, because there's an element of flexibility to him. He's not an out-and-out right winger that hugs the line there. Johnny, we've now had Daniel Farke and Le Bris impressions off you, though. Any more for any more? Are you working on a Pep Guardiola one for us, or have we got any surprises coming?
When I've had about 6 or 8 pints, I can do a hell of a good Mikel Arteta, but I'm far too sober to do that right now.
We'll look forward to when we play Arsenal again, and you can bring that one out for us.
Maybe on the podcast.
I'm just thinking here now, about what we're saying. If Ballard's available, I could feasibly see this being the team. Wouldn't be my choice, but I could see it being Roofs in goal, Serkin as the left wing back, Hume as the right wing back, Alderete, Ballard, Nordy as the back three, with Getrauda, Shaka in front, Enzo on the left, Rig on the right, and possibly Brobby up front. It's not the most attacking team in the world, but I think in terms of organisation, maybe that's something I could see Reggie doing that. I think it all really hinges on this thing we don't know about at this time of recording, which is whether Ballard's going to be available or not. I think if Ballard's available, he probably does go to a back five, you know.
Yeah, and it gives you bucket loads of graft, that team, if nothing else. For all we can talk about the limits attacking-wise, all four of that midfield would be absolutely working their asses off. And we all know how good that back five can be. Okay, Serkin's a slightly rogue element, but you know what I mean? Like, we've seen that unit work, so I don't hate that team. It just wouldn't be what I'd pick. But I agree with you. I could see Reggie picking it.
Yeah. And I think in terms of the striker, I know there are people who want to see Wilson Isidore start, but given we're probably not going to have much of the ball, when it goes forward, it needs to stick. And I think Broby's the best option for that. At least he holds it up. I know he missed a couple of chances in the last game, but he was a threat when he did get the opportunities. You know, he got in behind. I thought he pinned their defence magnificently. The way he kind of got us forward and won free kicks, and probably should have won more if the referee had been any good. You know what I mean? Like he would have probably won us a lot more further up the pitch. So he would be my pick up there. I don't know if either of you disagree with that, but I'm going with Broby again as the starting striker.
Yeah, Broby for me. Mayenda and Isidore looked pretty lively when they came on against Leeds. I know you said a couple of times you're a big fan of Mayenda and think this might be a good time to give him a start. But yeah, Broby, given the opposition and given the fact we're going to need to stop the ball just constantly coming back at us every 30 seconds, Broby has to start for me. And at that point as well, I couldn't agree more. Referees just don't seem to think they're allowed to give free kicks to Brian Broby. It's ridiculous, man. He's getting battered and bruised every week, and yet no protection. No protection.
Well, he's got big muscles, so he can't possibly get fouled, which seems to be the logic of every referee in the world.
Yeah, you're right. It does. It's almost like, well, he's bigger and stronger, so therefore he shouldn't fall to the ground. But it does hamper us a little bit, because if we were to get a few more free kicks in the opposition's final third, that's a potential avenue for us to worry teams.
What about predictions then? What we're saying? I'm not going to ask for score predictions today, more so just how do we see the game playing out? Because like I can see us getting a point if we are really organised and City have something of an off day. I don't see us winning, but I do see a world where we get a point. I can see us maybe getting a 1-1 or a 0-0, like somehow just being so solid and so good at just winning the second balls and doing the basics, that maybe because like us City played 4 days ago, that maybe the tiredness kicks in. They're not as sharp as they usually are, but I think we've got to be at our best. What do you reckon, Andrew? Where do you see the game going? Heart first, then head. Let's go with what your heart's saying, then your head.
Heart always says a Sunderland win, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Me head nearly always says a Sunderland win as well, because I have no critical thinking when it comes to Sunderland. But no, I think we could be good for a point. Sunderland like in those first few minutes to start on the front foot and really give a team a going over for a few minutes, and then they like to just slow things down and try and get through to half-time unscathed. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's how it pans out for the first 45 minutes. But I've just got so much belief in this team. However, lads, let's see Sunderland come and get another point and give us another performance to be proud of.
Yeah. What about you, Johnny? What are you saying?
Heart says 1-0, my end in 90 plus 4. Head says some amount of goals to 0 in favour of Man City. I'll be honest, I think this is possibly that little... Andrew's given us a big thumbs down for all the listeners. But it just feels like that classic little... It's just one step too far at the minute with the games we've had and the run we've been on and the players we've got missing and yada, yada, yada. It might just be that one little stretch too far at this stage for where we are in our development. So, yeah, I hate to say it because you know me, I'm usually dead positive, but don't particularly see us getting a favourable result.
Well, let's just hope that Sunderland's unbeaten run continues when we come to record the post-match reaction pod, which won't be a pub cast for this one because I think it'll be a bit too late. But Martin and the lads will be doing one for the Exiles, so that should be out straight after the game. So hopefully by that point we know Sunderland have picked up more Premier League points and we're still flying high in the top half of the table. That would be nice, wouldn't it? So yes, let's see where we're at with that. Also over on rotereport.sbnation.com, all your pre-match articles are there. And of course, after the game, we will have player ratings. And then in the morning, there'll be all of the, I guess, the stuff that we put out after the dust is settled. It's not too reactionary, the talking points and musings and stuff. So make sure you catch up with that. Just need to say thank you very much, Andrew. Been a pleasure, mate.
Yes, cheers, Gav. 2025 was canny enough, wasn't it? Let's see if 2026 can get off to as good a start.
Absolutely. And thanks to you, Jonny. Cheers, mate.
Pleasure as always, lads. Thank you very much.
Lovely. And thank you to the listeners. We'll catch you on the next one. See you then.
Get smarter about women's sports with She's Not Next, She's Now, a new podcast series from The Gist of It. She's Not Next, She's Now dives into the women's sports and leagues shaping the future right now. Enjoy real conversations with players, executives, and fans across the fastest growing women's sports. Each episode breaks down how these leagues started, where they stand today, and what comes next. It's clear, thoughtful coverage that goes deeper than headlines without the noise. Listen to She's Not Next, She's Now from The Gist of It wherever you get your podcasts. That's She's Not Next, She's Now on The Gist of It feed.